everybody. Glad to have you with us on a Kirby Connects. Glad to be with you. I missed last week, and I understand I missed a very important book of the Bible, Song of Solomon, that Clayton was talking about, and kind of garnered a lot of conversation.
Yes, it did.
And so anyway, we're glad to have you with us. And our goal is to help you read through the Bible with better understanding. And hopefully that happened last week, and we hope that it'll happen again this week. Don is here, and Emery is here, Clayton is here.
Yes, sir.
And so we are like in the middle of Detroit Lion euphoria.
Here we go.
Because we're one
Because
and one.
one.
Because we're
we
one and
won
one.
We're in first place.
Well, but you know what? We have never won a game in September.
Yeah.
And
hope
the
is
last,
alive.
like,
Are you serious?
yes.
That's sad.
Yeah, in the last 3 or 4 years. At least I think that's
That's
a
really
true
sad.
statement. We haven't won.
They tried to not win.
Yeah.
Third quarter, they
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They felt guilty.
Yeah, well, they
And they
worked
started
on it.
going back
So
to the
give me, there's 17 games. This is for Emery. There's 17 games
we go.
in the season.
Yes.
All right? I want everybody, and Emery will answer last. Okay. How many games do you think the Lions will win? And we'll start with Emery. And the most valuable player on the Lions this year.
Got it.
So there's 15 games left. They're 1-1.
Okay.
So what's their total number of wins?
7 wins, 10 losses.
7 wins, 10 losses, and their most valuable player would be
That guy that is their first string quarterback this year.
Jared Goff.
well,
That guy.
I know how to be diplomatic.
yeah,
And
yeah.
appear that I may know what I'm
Technically, he
talking
wasn't
about.
our draft pick, but
The guy who receives the snaps.
yeah.
Snap receiver
He's
guy.
probably on the first string.
The guy that screams a lot. The guy that screams a lot.
Seems to have the
That's the
ball
guy.
quite a bit.
Seems to have the ball.
Receiver guy.
Oh, Clayton, what is your total? We got 7 and 10.
Oh, I don't know if I'm that optimistic.
Yeah, they're 1-1 right now.
You only need 6 more.
Yeah.
It's a weak division. The NFC is weak. Their travel schedule is great.
I'm going to say 5.
5.
Oh, Clay. Throw the tomatoes now.
Man.
Oh, yeah.
Throw them through.
Please, if you are listening,
through the
stop the
audio.
car right now, pull over and hit the Rotten Tomato button.
Yes.
right
Come
there.
on.
Do the
Clay.
Rotten
I
Tomato.
think
had
most
hope so
valuable
bad.
player for them will be Swift.
Wow.
Swift is a stud.
10 yards per carry right now.
And that's not
He's
Taylor
a
Swift.
stud.
No.
Not Taylor Swift. Oh my goodness.
As far as I know, no relation.
No relation.
That was excellent.
No relation.
Well done, Emery.
Then we
Just had to
come.
make sure because I saw her at Ford Field.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
It's all connected.
So you went to a concert?
I did. The whole family went to
You went to a
Emery.
Taylor
I think
Swift.
Emery-
See,
Emery-
now
Oh,
I
yeah.
got
I
a
think we
little.
got-
Requested
He
for
saw
another
Swift
week.
play at
I
Lions Field.
got a little trouble just picturing you
Oh yeah.
at a Taylor Swift concert.
Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran. I think we
Yeah.
can get a mortgage. second mortgage.
Did your wife make you go to that?
She was instrumental in my
Attendance.
seating
My
at the event.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
That's
So
great.
So when
going
Emery,
on.
when Emery tells the guys here that he saw Swift at
I
Ford
know.
Field,
I know.
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
whole different thing.
Yeah,
Going
the
on.
guys we're talking about on Sunday do not wear red lipstick.
That's
You know,
right.
So
just
choreographed
throwing
on the
that
field.
out. Just throwing that out. Don, what's your total?
I'm saying 9 and 8, winning season.
9.
There we go.
Whoa!
Winning season.
Wow.
hey, I hope
Tipping
you're
in the
right.
winning
You
side.
heard
Wow.
it first here, just like you heard the conclusion of winter.
That's true.
From these lips.
Hopefully this is
Yes.
more
Yeah,
accurate.
you were dead
Before
on that
anyone
one. Yeah. You were spot on that one, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Oh, yeah, I'm counting on yours.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's dig into the scriptures. Now we're in the book of Isaiah,
Yes.
a tough book,
Yeah, it
an
is.
important book.
Super important.
One of the major books of the Old Testament
Yeah.
because it clearly shines a light on the New Testament in prophetical ways, but a lot of us don't understand the symbolic
Yeah.
prophetical language that prophets would use back in that day. So Emery's going to help us out.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about last week about 2 really important concepts. Every week it's going to be important. The prophets are forth tellers as well as foretellers, and that there is a thing with prophecy that, and it does all throughout Isaiah, that they have a near fulfillment and a far fulfillment. That both are linked to it. A time in which these people that he's writing to, that it would make sense to them, but also prophecies about the coming Messiah that would be much, much later. So you have to know at this time there's the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. So it's written to the southern kingdom. It's written to Judah and Benjamin. But like, it's so fractured. Not only are they two different kingdoms, but at the beginning of where we're at in chapter 8, King Rezin of Aram and Pekah, he's the king of Israel, they go up and attack Judah. So the people who were once a unified nation are actually physically attacking one another. They're that far apart. They're not distant neighbors that are like, hey, we're okay. Mm-hmm. Like, they have their sails set against each other. So,
and by the way, let's don't, and I'm talking to, I know you know, but let's don't think that Israel or Judah or any of the 12 tribes that comprised Israel or Judah are mighty in political clout,
right?
Warriors, weaponry. They are at this time busted, broken, poor, destitute, and it's probably the weak fighting the weak. Yeah, you know, just to kind of get ahead and take back some land.
And you make a great point because of that very fact. Instead of relying on God, either one of the two kingdoms, they make alliances with people instead of relying on God. Mm-hmm. They even try to make an alliance with Egypt.
And they didn't go and try to form an alliance with each other.
No, not at all. They actually, Southern Kingdom looks to make an alliance with Egypt, whom they were delivered from much earlier, so that Egypt can come and help them fight back their brothers in Israel who are taken over. So by now, it is a mess. It's an absolute mess. They're neither one of them are following God. But so these guys are coming up against Judah, Aram, and also Israel. And God uses Assyria to stop them and stop them from invading Judah. Now, so there's this weird thing that you have to get this, and it's all throughout the prophetic books, right? God is sovereign. That means God is sovereign over people who follow him and people that don't follow him. So at different times, right now, God is using Assyria to carry out his battle. Now, later on, he uses Assyria not to protect Judah, but to give them a warning shot over the bow so that they start following him again. So at that point, Assyria is now attacking Judah, but it's not on their own that they're doing this. They're doing that because they're an instrument of what God is trying to do and trying to accomplish with Judah, trying to bring it back to him. Mm-hmm. So he uses them, much like Nebuchadnezzar. You know, you can't make a case that Nebuchadnezzar was a God follower, but God used Nebuchadnezzar like crazy. Mm-hmm. And just like Assyria, where both of these guys, Assyria and Babylonia, both got in trouble, was they really liked destroying Judah and destroying Israel. And God didn't really like that. It's like, okay, I'm going to use you as an instrument, but you got to know that, like, it's me behind you that's doing this. So that's why.
And that doesn't give a stamp of approval. Like
No,
Nebuchadnezzar
not at all.
wasn't God giving his seal of approval on Nebuchadnezzar's life, ministry, kingdom, or anything.
Not at all. Or his beliefs or anything like that.
It's just God is so sovereign, and he can work his purposes even through evil people.
He does.
Which is a unique concept.
Because of his sovereignty. And you even see that in Daniel. So in Daniel with Nebuchadnezzar, you know, God has elevated him to this spot so that he can be a tool used to basically bring his own people back in line. And then he thinks it's all me. He stands on the palace and, like, look at my kingdom and all this stuff that I have, and doesn't acknowledge that it's God who actually got him the way that he did. And he then is made to lose his mind, literally, for 7 years and grow big giant nails and be absolutely crazy until he acknowledges that the God of the Israelites is who is responsible for him having what he has. And then all of a sudden he's in his right mind again, and he actually becomes king again. Mm-hmm. But so there's God using other foreign agents to try to bring Judah back into line to following him, because that's always his goal. That's not always God's goal for the surrounding nations around him. You're going to see tons of prophecies about Moab and the Philistines and all things like that. Basically, the prophecies about that are like, you know, there's coming a time when I'm not going to let you go any further, and I'm going to destroy you guys. With Israel, with Judah, it's like you guys are going to have to suffer some things now, but you have to understand my long game is I love you and I want you to follow me and be in the right place. So there's a different outcome for those two things. Now, along with the war that's going on and all the things that have to do with battle, there are some really significant prophecies of Christ in the section that we're going through today. Famous verses that you probably heard 1,000 times but didn't know that they came out of Isaiah. So 9:6 says, "For unto us a child is born, a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and of the increase of his government there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing justice and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever." So the zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this forever, because it's not an earthly king that's going to do this. That's not really what he's talking about. There's a foreshortened prophecy, but he's talking about Jesus. So this is a clear prophecy about the coming Messiah fulfilled in Jesus. And as you keep going through, you just see more and more of that. In 11:1 and 3, a shoot will rise up from the stump of Jesse, from his roots a branch, capital B, will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of power, and the Spirit of knowledge. And so the deal with this is, so if you take the analogy between the nation, between Judah and this tree, right? So when you take a tree and you cut down the stump of it, it's not uncommon for there's just one little shoot, this one little thing to come out and actually ends up making a tree. So like Pastor Mike said, Judah is busted up and broke down. They are that stump that has been cut off near the ground. But out of that, there comes the hope. Out of that rises up this root from there that is and will be the Messiah that comes to save not only them, but to save us all.
Yeah, there's a good kind of application in it. If you're listening and you think your life is just all messed up and like a cut off tree trunk and stump, and you feel like you've got nothing left to offer, God's not done working his purposes in you by any stretch of the imagination. Be faithful to him, and God certainly will work it out.
Yeah, it may look like it's through, but with God, what seems impossible
Is
becomes
not
possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff, Emery. Don, let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 12.
2 Corinthians 11:16 through
Or
Galatians.
or
3.
11:16. Either one.
Galatians.
Either one works fine.
Because we're going to start in 11. That's why I got to make sure. So, a huge thing that I want to hit and touch base with us here right at the beginning is hard things in our lives, difficult things in our lives. Will you consider this perspective as you're reading this part of God's Word this week? Lord, maybe this prayer, Lord, help me to embrace hard things so that I can do harder things. Help me to embrace things that are difficult so that I can mature and do more difficult things. Help me to grow in the struggle, in the strain, so that I can become strengthened in you. My illustration for this is lifting weights. You have, there's an exercise called the bench press. And I cannot do a lot anymore with my shoulder injury. I couldn't do a lot before my shoulder injury. But at the NFL Combine, Justin Ernest from Eastern Kentucky did 51 reps of 225 pounds on bench press.
How many did he do?
51 reps.
Clayton did 61. So.
Not
Earlier
true.
today.
Maybe
Not
61
true.
pounds.
And the thing is, here's what I want us to know. I don't care how much I believed in myself. I don't care how much Emery encouraged me. I don't care how much Pastor Mike told me my job depended on it. If we put a bench in front of me with 225 pounds, I couldn't even lift it once. I'm pretty confident, and I guarantee I could not lift it 51 times. The only way that happens is we get stronger as we go through trials, as we go through resistance, as we go through difficulty. And I was talking to a friend this week, and we were talking about doing hard things for Jesus Christ. And I said, if we're not willing to do something that legitimately may be difficult or we may be mistreated in this life, don't think that we're going to stand up and give our lives for Christ in martyrdom. Don't think that we're going to do some huge thing. Let me read to you the list of what Paul endured in the trials that he went through in 2 Corinthians 11, starting in verse 22. He worked harder than others. He was in prison more. He was whipped times without number. He faced death again and again. 5 times Jewish leaders gave him 39 lashes. 3 times he was beaten with rods. 1 time he was stoned. 3 times he was shipwrecked. 1 time he spent a whole night adrift at sea. He endured long journeys, dangers from rivers and robbers, dangers from Jews and Gentiles, forced danger in the cities, the deserts, and the seas. He faced danger in those. He faced dangers from men who claimed to be believers. He worked hard and long. He endured for many sleepless nights. He was hungry and thirsty. He went without food. He shivered in the cold. He didn't have enough clothes to keep warm. And then he had to carry the burden of the churches. And in all this, he became stronger and stronger and stronger for Christ. He did the things that were difficult and endured more trials and more trials. And I just want to challenge us to look at the life of Paul and endure some things for Jesus, because Jesus is worthy. And then in this place of strength, he says, but really, I guess I'm just weak. I'm not as strong as you. There's these super apostles that are out there that you guys are following, that, and they're calling Paul's authority into question, his teaching into question. They're saying he is strong in his letters but weak in person, and then he goes and defends his authority. He has an amazing vision in chapter 12. He heard things that were so astounding that no human could express in words, and no human was allowed to tell when he was caught up in the third heaven. I don't know what that is. We could sit here all day and talk about that. But there was a messenger from Satan to torment him, a thorn in the flesh, so that he wouldn't be proud. And so we were talking this. What do you guys think that is? What do you think that thorn in the flesh is?
Go ahead, guys.
It's such a hard verse to interpret because of what's not there, and then like the connection is a messenger of Satan. So that like, what does that imply?
Right, that it is.
So let me take a different take, because we often assume that it's a physical. Mm-hmm. But what if it was just great fear, because he's always having to kind of solidify the fact
who he is,
that he is an apostle.
Yeah.
He's not boasting, but it's like, okay, I'm accepted. There's this verse in Ephesians 1:6. He's accepted in the beloved, but I wonder if he ever felt truly accepted by the church.
Yeah.
For all that he had done.
Yeah. There's the church in
yes.
Thessalonica. He certainly did feel loved by them. The church at Ephesus, they wept when he went to Rome. Corinthians, probably not so much.
Yeah,
not so much.
He loved them. But
Jerusalem, probably not so much, because anytime he got in town, he and Peter kind of butted heads a little bit. And even though I think they were friends, their viewpoints were different and temperaments were different. I mean, he struggled to get along with Barnabas.
Yeah, absolutely.
The son of encouragement.
Yeah, that's...
The son, if you can't get along with a guy whose name means the son of encouragement, it might be a little tough for you. So I don't know, we talk about the thorn in the flesh, and anxiety, manifests itself in a very physical way, even though that it's something internal.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, anxiety always, if you look at the symptoms for anxiety, a great deal of them are physical symptoms. So they do manifest themselves in that way. They're going to come out in all kinds of ways that are physical, and not just mental or not just emotional in nature. I look at what he had to go through, and like, how do you even do that? Like Corinth, I think, like he would talk to Corinth, and then like by the time he turned his back and got out the door, they were like off track. He was probably worried about them all the time, and then trying to defend. Like, he can't be everywhere at once, and he's trying to defend the church from these people that are coming in and trying to like kind of steal it away for their own motives, and they're kind of trying to be the the televangelist rock stars of the day, and
Yeah.
you know, he's always having to defend his place when
Yeah.
he's got the message.
Sure. You know, some of the physical things theologians have surmised over the years, maybe it was migraine headaches, eye trouble, malaria, epilepsy. We don't know. Paul seemed to think, as you guys just alluded to, I'm reading out of the King James, so I will probably not read it right. But unless I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations that there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan. Not that Satan was the deliverer of it. It was just the reminder of it. Hey, Paul felt like God used this so that Paul would not get too big for his britches.
Yeah, because he had seen what
So he
nobody
wouldn't
had
become
ever
proud.
seen.
The
Right.
purpose of it was to keep his pride from all that he, in context, from what he got to see.
Yeah.
These verses, what he got to see in the third, what he got to see in
He
this
couldn't even
heavenly
describe.
vision. Right,
Couldn't
right.
even
It's
describe
like
it. No one else had seen it.
wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. 3 times he begged the Lord to take it away, but the Lord said, "No, my strength is made perfect in
By the way-
your weakness."
Now, here's an interesting thing. I think he prayed, and I have no way to prove this, but I think he prayed probably more than 3 times that God would take whatever it is away. But that word begged is an intense season of petitioning God. Where he
Yeah, because
went-
sometimes the
3
word
seasons he
times
begged the Lord,
is
yeah.
not meant
Yeah.
to be a frequency. Times can be a season.
Right.
If you look at
a
original
length, a
language.
duration, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we were talking about this earlier, but God promised him something better than the deliverance from whatever it was that
Yeah.
was bothering, whether internally or external. And a lot of times we just want the quick fix. God deliver me, and God says, Paul, I got something better for you. My grace is sufficient for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so Paul had a choice. Do I want temporary healing, or do I want the abundance of God's grace in my life, the overflowing abundance of God's grace? Sadly, we choose the physical and not the spiritual.
Yes, and the abundant overflow of God's grace is all what Galatians 1 and 2 is going about. When
yeah.
it says the law can't do for us what only God's grace can do for us. I stopped trying to meet all the law's requirements so that I might live for God. Believing the message that you heard about Christ is the key, not keeping the law, is how verse chapter 3 ends up. I love that. Believing the message you heard about Christ, because everything that's been amazing to me about this whole journey through the New Testament is that again and again, the authority of Christ, while he was living, now, after he has died on the cross, been buried, and resurrected from the dead, it's still being held up. The authority of Christ, believing the message you heard about Christ is key, not keeping the law. Yeah.
Good stuff. That is good stuff. And there's no settled thing. And you know what? When we get to heaven and something, because I've talked to people who go, well, I want to ask Paul, what was his thorn in the flesh? I think in heaven, Paul's going to hug your neck and go, doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
That was
You
then,
know,
this is now.
the thorn in the flesh. It wasn't the thorn that was important to Paul. It was the purpose of the thorn, and that was to stay humble before Christ. And so that's good stuff. All right. Well, Clayton is through the book of Song of Solomon, and I'm truly sorry that I missed that last week and was not here for that. But he is going to give us a one day soon. He's going to do a Song of Solomon 2.0 for us.
Oh, boy.
But today he is
time
back
he
in. Yes.
2024.
Yeah.
Tune in.
So, wisdom lip back in Proverbs.
Yes, back in Proverbs chapter 23, verse 4 through 18. And the first kind of point I want us to look at goes right along with what we just discussed. And it's this idea of we have a choice. We have a choice to choose to pursue earthly things or heavenly things. Just like we talked about with Paul, with it being choosing the physical or the eternal. We have the same here. And I think this is one of our biggest struggles, especially as Americans, is we like stuff and we like nice and shiny and more and new and all of that. But he warns against this. He warns very much against this in Proverbs, starting in verse 4 and 5, and we'll jump to 17 and 18. Verse 4 and 5, he says, "Don't wear yourself out to get rich, because you know better." Stop. And he used the exclamation point there. You know better. Stop. Stop doing this. And then he gives a little explanation here. It says, as soon as your eyes fly to it, it disappears. For it makes wings for itself, and it flies like an eagle to the sky. Jump to verse 17 and 18. It says, don't let your heart envy sinners. Instead, always fear the Lord. For then you will have a future, and your hope will not be dashed. And so just in merging those two together, man, we do as believers have a choice each and every day. Are we going to choose to pursue with our lives things of this world, things that are sinful, things that may not necessarily be sinful, but they are less than what God is wanting us to pursue? Or are we going to choose to pursue heavenly things, the path that God wants us to take? And so I encourage us this week to look at that each and every day. Ask ourselves that question each and every day. Seek God's help each and every day to help us be on the right track, take the right steps, pursue what He wants us to pursue, and not settle for things that are less, things of this earth.
Hey, I want to jump in there on verse 17 because I hear this a lot as pastor, and I know you guys do too. That people will say, verse 17, where it says, "Let not thine heart envy sinners." Again, that's King James language. And there's so many people who think that it's only Christians who have problems. Everybody has issues. Yeah. Everybody has problems. Just, watch your news feed and see what problems, the famous and the wealthy from Hollywood have, or the sports people are having, or from any business communities. I mean, any segment of life. And so let's do away with the notion that we have to envy people because it seems like they're living a carefree, scot-free life. They're not. Everybody's got luggage. Everybody's got issues. Everybody's got hardships. Everybody has trials and testings and struggles. Our blessed hope and our promise is that we have God's abiding power and peace and presence with us through those troubles and through those times. And those who don't know Christ, unless they have a Christian friend who can kind of help them navigate a bit, they're left just to flounder.
Lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. So just two more points real quick here. 1, verse 13 and 14. Man, I am not telling anybody how to parent, but Proverbs gives us some great
But God is.
wisdom here. Yes. I love the 2 points. I love the 2 points that we get from this. Verse 13 and 14 go together. It says, don't withhold discipline from a youth. If you punish him with a rod, he will not die. Verse 14, punish him with a rod, and you will rescue his life from Sheol. And then if you go to 15 and 16, it says, my son, if your heart is wise, my heart will indeed rejoice. My innermost being will celebrate when your lips say what is right. And so there's two things I think in parenting we can get from that. One, discipline is a good thing when done in the right way. Discipline, it says, is needed here. It is important. It will save. It will rescue. And then 15 and 16, I think this is where it's missed sometimes, but also celebrating when right is done. He says, when you, my son, say the right thing, when your words are right, I will celebrate. My heart will rejoice indeed. And awesome. So I think it's two-part. It's not one or the other. Yes, discipline is needed, but also celebrating that positive affirmation to celebrate. Man,
it's a lot
so
easier to
proud.
find the negative.
It is.
As a parent.
And some parents, that's all the kids hear.
Yes.
Just what you did wrong.
Right. And everything, and we assume that in our culture we would call this spanking, right? And so, the King James used the word beat. We're not using beat, and we're not talking violent. And if every time, this is my own personal view. I think I could back it up with scripture. But if every time your child does something wrong, you spank them, then that's poor parenting.
Yes.
I think spanking is a very, 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 very last resort. And then if you do spank, then I think you've got to understand there's probably a spiritual issue going on. And if all you do is deal with the behavioral side of it, well, they'll do that just to get back in good favor with you, or not be grounded, or go to their buddy's house, or play their Switch or whatever they want to play. But pray with your kids.
Address the heart issue.
Address heart issue, and I think that goes to that good word.
Absolutely.
That Clayton was talking about. And
It reminds me of Josh McDowell had this saying like probably 25 years ago, and it just stuck in my heart ever since I heard it. It said, "Rules without relationship equal rebellion." So if you have a kid that you're not pouring into, that you're not making any relationship with, yeah, they're not gonna. Why would they listen to you? They don't think you're for them.
No.
So it's more about rules, and you're gonna get more of that pushback. You're gonna get some anyway, no matter what. But you're going to get more of that if you don't have a relationship with your kid. If your kid doesn't think you listen or say good things when they do good things.
Let me just throw this in here too, and this is a tangent, but spanking a last resort. If you do spank, I think there is one part of the body made for the spanking, and then the intent is not to inflict bodily harm, but is just to get their attention, to teach there's consequences for the sin. But mom and dad, if you discipline in anger, then you're committing a sin because you're disciplining in anger. It's inappropriate discipline. It's not God honoring. He gets no glory from that because disciplining anything, spiritually, physically, it's not about punitive. It's not punitive. It's restorative. You want to restore relationship. You want to restore behavior, and even when God works with us and we get disciplined of the Lord, the point is, restorative. That's the goal.
Yeah, it's not punishment, it's discipline. In that verse, how God works with us, it doesn't say that God punishes us, for our own good. No, that He disciplines us to bring us to a right place. In anger, you're just trying to vent that you're ticked off about something. You're not trying to teach any kind of lesson.
Right.
And that was one thing that was so amazing about Pastor's parenting. And now, after my youngest is now 19, but Pastor, I remember every time, the few times I was around, whenever his boys had to get spanking, I just remember they always prayed. It was always loving, and I remember just trying to watch. I remember watching that and learning so much from that, and exercising that in our home, in parenting. Yeah.
Good stuff. Did you guys talk this much about Song of Solomon last week, Clayton?
Oh, yeah.
Did you? All right. Anyway, keep going.
Stuck to the.
And lastly, it's just verse 12. And I think, man, if we applied this, it would change so much. Simply in verse 12, it says, apply yourself to discipline and listen to words of knowledge. Today is a day of, I want it now. I want what I want. I want it this instant. It doesn't matter how it affects anybody else or how it impacts anybody else. It's about what I want, and I'm always right. And this, I think if we live this way, it's the opposite of that. Apply yourself to discipline, man. Have self-control. Apply that in your life and listen to words of knowledge, meaning come into the humble spirit. You don't know it all. Continue to grow. Continue to learn. And so as we read through Proverbs, New Testament, Old Testament, I hope we do that. I hope we discipline ourselves. I hope we have self-control. I hope we spend time with God. And I hope we spend time with God, allowing Him to transform us and to give us knowledge and wisdom so that we can live the life He wants us to.
Great stuff. And one of the disciplines, spiritual disciplines that the Bible intimates for us in the Scriptures is meditation. Just taking time to think about the Scriptures. And certainly Isaiah and 2 Corinthians and the beginning of Galatians and Proverbs are worthy of time just to think it through. How does it work? What do I need to do? God, search my heart. Help me to live it out better. God bless you. Have a great week. We'll see you Sunday in church.